COVID, man, what a trip. COVID is the reason I haven't made any top 10 videos in the last 3 years. I saw fewer new films in 2021, 22, and 23 than any other 3 years of my life, but not in 2024. It's not like COVID is over or anything. It's still killing about as many people as the flu, but I've got my bearings back. I'm finally back to watching almost as many new films as I was pre-pandemic. And this is how I'm celebrating that. There's still plenty of films from 2024 that I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen The Brutalist, or I'm Still Here, or Nickel Boys, or A Different Man, or The Arctic Convoy, or She Is Conan, or Mars Express, or Janet Planet, or The Beast, or Primevals, or Hundreds of Beavers. But you know what I have seen? 10 really good films. Number 10. Young Woman in the Sea.
7 miles. In how many hours?
5. I'll do it in 4.
3. Do it in 3.
Daisy Ridley starred in 3 films in 2024, and all 3 of them are on my list this year. I've been following her post-Star Wars career pretty closely ever since I read this heartbreaking interview where she said that job offers didn't start rolling in after Star Wars, that her career actually contracted. She had to go looking for good roles, which is just wild to me. There weren't many consistently good things about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but Daisy Ridley was one of the precious few. I'd say she's having to work harder to find good work than someone with her talents probably should. In fact, she didn't just star in 3 films she made in 2024, she produced them too.
It's 9:30. Her time is up.
How was dinner, Mr. Sullivan?
First up is Young Woman in the Sea, a Jerry Bruckheimer-produced biopic about Trudy Ederle, the first woman to ever swim the English Channel in 1926. Not only was she the first woman to cross, she beat the previous record holder by more than 2 hours. This movie has the same basic structure of most any Disney sports biopic, but when you look closer, you start to notice lots of interesting little wrinkles. Like, I thought Trudy was going to start off with some innate expert swimming skills, but she doesn't. She joins a local women's swimming club and flounders for the first several weeks. But as she keeps shoveling coal as punishment for coming in last place, she gets stronger and stronger. And then when she finally learns to kick her feet, she's unbeatable. Her 2 attempts at crossing the channel make up the back half of the movie, and they're just spectacular. As tense as they are engaging, as emotional as they are methodical. The filmmakers do well to contextualize the numerous technical challenges of the swim.
She'll make 2 90-degree turns during the swim at about 20 miles.
Then plenty of complications crop up along the way. Like when the jellyfish showed up, I literally said out loud on my couch, "What are we gonna do?" There are even a few dramatic reversals that are so dramatic, like the trainer who tries to sabotage her first crossing, that I had to run to Wikipedia to check and see whether those parts were made up. And it turns out, they kinda weren't.
It's over.
Anyway, I could go on, but this video isn't meant to be 45 minutes long, so the last thing I'll say is that Disney absolutely needs to put this out on Blu-ray. It's bad enough that there's no way to watch it without a Disney Plus account. You can't even pay to rent it on Fandango or Amazon or anything like that. Really breaking the mold with your logos there, guys. But the fact that I've never seen a streaming service open up its bitrate high enough to handle shots of open choppy water is especially problematic for a film with this many shots of open choppy water. Number 9. Last Summer.
Parfois, il y a des choses qui n'auraient jamais, mais jamais dû arriver.
Comme nous deux?
Il n'y a pas de nous deux.
Last Summer is a French remake of the 2019 Danish film Queen of Hearts, which tells the story of Anne, a middle-aged attorney living on the outskirts of Paris who suddenly begins an affair with her estranged, temperamental stepson. The film was directed by Catherine Breillat, who, believe it or not, has actually managed to make a less controversial film than the Danish original. Okay, well, maybe not less controversial, but certainly less lurid, less melodramatic. But that's what I like so much about it. It's much more subtle.
Théo, on doit surtout jamais recommencer. Tu flippes? Je plaisante pas.
At first I was worried the only source of drama and controversy would be the simple fact that Anne is having an affair with her stepson, a concept that's about as shocking as bare ankles to anyone with access to the internet. So I read. But that's not the shocking bit. That's not what stays with you. It's all the little granular details, like the fact that Anne litigates child abuse cases for a living.
C'est toi l'adulte.
Et toi alors un enfant?
Or the fact that her stepson isn't some seductive Lothario, but rather an emotionally stunted twink. Or as the French say, twonk.
Qu'est-ce que t'as grandi?
Who finds out about the affair, and what their reactions are? None of it goes down exactly how I expected. Where the Danish film was basically just a melodramatic portrait of one very vile person, Last Summer is more nuanced. Less a portrait of someone vile from the start than a relatively normal person who does vile things once certain pressures are applied, which to me is just a fascinating way to pivot away from the original. Number 8. Small things like these.
God help us.
Small Things Like These is a very quiet, soft-spoken film about people being confronted with some horrifying realities, and then not saying what they think about them. And it makes for some incredibly tense filmmaking. Cillian Murphy plays Bill, an impoverished coal merchant just trying to raise a family in 1985 Ireland. He's soon confronted by an open secret on the outskirts of town. The Catholic Church is operating an asylum, a prison really, where young girls are forcibly incarcerated whenever they get pregnant, or simply act out of turn. The rest of the film follows Bill as he doesn't say much about what he saw, but he's thinking about it constantly. When he's forced to revisit the site as part of his job, he witnesses more horrors, which prompts further reflection and potential conflict.
Won't you help us? Please. Please take me to the river.
The scene where the lead nun leans on Bill as a means of controlling how much he's going to resist is one of the most nerve-wracking sequences I watched all year. And it's literally just two people sitting in a room.
And you've another 2 coming to us, don't you?
There are 3.
3.
Sheila will be coming next September, and then there'll be Grace and Loretta.
The movie feels like an elaboration of an important line in 2015's Spotlight, which was also about the systemic abuse of children.
If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to abuse one.
And as good as the script is, if I could only recommend this film for one thing, it would be Cillian Murphy's performance. It's everything he's not saying that makes it so great. It reminds me of that interview with Michael Caine where he talks about not speaking as a form of acting talent.
I said, well, I haven't got anything to say. So he said, what do you mean you haven't got anything to say? He said, of course you've got things to say. You've got wonderful things to say. But you sit there and listen, think of these extraordinary things to say, and then decide not to say them.
Number 7. Sometimes I think about dying.
Hi.
Fran, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I Think About Dying is the second Daisy Ridley film to make my list this year. It tells the story of Fran, a painfully shy, chronically reserved loner working a dead-end office job in the Pacific Northwest. The fact that she lives in the Pacific Northwest isn't crucial to the plot, but since I've lived there quite recently, I find it noteworthy. Sometimes I Think About Dying is a bit of a misnomer. Fran does not think about dying. She thinks about being dead. Those are two different things. It's the difference between being suicidal and being introverted. One sympathizes.
Hey, Fran. Sorry.
Fran seems content to drift in and out of work like a ghost, until newcomer Robert starts working there. Fran takes an instant shine to him, in her own way.
What do you call a sad coffee?
Oh, what do you call sad coffee?
No espresso.
Okay, so if you're not already hooked, I don't know if I'll ever be able to convince you to watch this one, because 5 minutes in and I was ready to defend Fran with my life. The rest of the film plays out over the course of a week, as Fran begins to open up and get closer to Robert. But with her newfound friendship comes newfound vulnerabilities.
No.
Never?
No.
Wow, really? I find that.
It's not that interesting.
What do you mean, like love or?
It's not. I'm not.
Now, This central conflict was plenty interesting and enjoyable for me, but where the film really got to me was about halfway through when I realized that Fran is basically me. I'm also a painfully shy, chronically reserved loner, at least when I'm not with my very best friends. Sometimes it takes me years to make new acquaintances. Not just friends, acquaintances. I have also told corny jokes unironically as workplace icebreakers. But it's not just the fact that I identified with Fran that got me so good. It's the fact that I loved her and wanted her to get everything she wants out of life. I realized right at the end of the film that I wasn't just rooting for Fran. I was rooting for me.
It's hard, isn't it? Being a person.
Serge, are you okay? No! But it's possible I might be someday. Number 6, Dune Part 2. I didn't make a top 10 list back in 2021, but if I had, I'd have probably mentioned at some point that I wasn't a big fan of Dune Part 1. It was both too long and too abrupt. 2.5 hours just to set up the main conflict, then credits. I mean, with an ending like that, could you ever imagine anyone ever saying, hey, I could really go for Dune Part 1 tonight? It was all a bit too humorless for my tastes.
Smile, Gurney. I am smiling.
Plus, I had gripes about the aesthetics. Everything looked too ascetic, too bare. And I don't mean bare as in like the desert looked too bare. I mean, I was expecting that. I mean bare as in nothing seems to exist beyond the edges of the frame. Arrakis doesn't feel like a place where people live, work, play, fight, and fuck. It feels like a series of threadbare antechambers where the rulers merely dictate how life shall be to their invisible subjects. I see no signs of a populace, of a culture. This isn't world building so much as composing pretty pictures with low saturation and high contrast. Anyway, Dune Part 2 fixed all of that, for the most part. The Fremen world is much more rich in texture than the Atreides world, although it still feels a little less lived in than I'd like. How do they get everyone in and out of these antechambers? What do they do when they adjourn? Do they all just rush the one exit? But that's a relatively small gripe. For every impossible antechamber, we get the Fremen cafeteria, the royal garden, and these attack sequences on the mining rigs. And those are all fantastic. More importantly, the script. Part 2 actually has 3 distinct acts. Paul joins the Fremen, Paul leverages Fremen myth-making to unite them all under his command, Paul takes the fight back to the Harkonnen, albeit under false, genocidal pretenses. By comparison, Part 1 really only had 2 acts. House Atreides moves to Arrakis, House Atreides is betrayed, and I think it really suffers for it. But Part 2 makes the list because it finally lets the central conflict play out in a way that makes me go, hey, let's watch Dune Part 2 tonight. Number 5, The Teacher's Lounge.
Darf ich euch alle mal bitten, kurz aufzustehen? Aufstehen. Ich will, dass wir jetzt alle mal so laut schreien, wie wir nur können. Achtung, fertig, los!
The Teacher's Lounge has an incredibly simple premise. An idealistic but unpopular school teacher realizes someone is stealing money from the Teacher's Lounge. She decides to secretly record the thief on her laptop, but that only makes things worse. When the thief refuses to confess,
Sie meinen das so.
Begreifen Sie es doch als Chance, die Sache hier und jetzt vom Tisch zu haben. Wir müssen nie wieder darüber reden.
Chance? Was ist denn das hier für eine Unverschämtheit?
she reports the theft to the principal, and then she's threatened with punitive action for recording her colleagues without their knowledge.
Dein Video verstößt gegen Persönlichkeitsrechte. Und nicht nur gegen die von Frau Kuhn, sondern des ganzen Kollegiums.
Scheiße.
Circumstances keep snowballing from there as more and more people keep getting drawn into the mess until eventually the whole school is ready to burst. Before I saw this film, my understanding was that every story is basically just a sequence of rising and falling action, of building up and then breaking tension. Maybe you've seen those little story graphs? Some people literally diagram it out. Well, Teacher's Lounge throws all that out the window. The graph of its rising action and falling action is just a straight line. An unbroken ascension of tension that doesn't break until the very last scene. The very last shot. I didn't know films could do that, but apparently they can. It makes for an extremely tense watch. but then the cathartic hit at the end is quite the experience, and I'll be very interested to see how it feels on subsequent rewatches. Number 4, Challengers.
Come here.
Which one of us?
Yeah, Challengers, it was good, and I probably liked it for all the same reasons you did. It's a tale as old as time. Boys meet girl starts dating one of them, marries the other, loses her career to a sudden injury, projects the expectations she had for her own career onto her husband, those expectations threaten to tear them apart, and then the first boy chooses to exploit that tension between them in order to try and relaunch both his career and his quest to get back into bed with one or the other.
We're not talking about tennis.
What the fuck else do I have to talk to you about?
I love this.
The story's engaging, the performances and cinematography are both having a lot of fun, and the score is as good as anything Trent Reznor's ever done. The closest thing to a hot take I have is that I don't think it's the sexy threesome thriller that most people seem to think it is. The most prevalent bodily fluid here is sweat, and nobody's thinking about sex when they do the most of it. This isn't a film about sex, or even sexual tension. This is a film about sexual frustration. What little sex that is in the film basically happens off screen, and then they go right back to being miserable. You can interpret that however you like, but my preferred take is that people tend to have a hard time engaging honestly with their own desires when absolutely everything in their lives, from the aesthetic details of their bodies, to the narratives they tell about themselves, to their very relationships with loved ones, are commodified.
I love you.
I know.
Capitalism ruins everything is basically what I'm saying, even sexy threesomes.
I'm going to bed.
But don't worry, if all you want is a sexy threesome movie, we've had a reigning champ for a quarter of a century. Oh, just kidding. That one's about capitalism too.
Tenoch pensó que nunca había visitado Tepelmeme, el pueblo natal de Leodegaria Victoria, Leo, su nana, quien a los 13 años emigró a la Ciudad de México.
Number 3, Magpie.
I felt pretty lonely this week.
Yeah, it's been tough.
The third and final film that Daisy Ridley did in 2024 was Magpie, and it's my favorite of the bunch. Based on an idea by Daisy Ridley, wow, good for her. It's probably best to go into this film knowing as little as possible, but I'll go ahead and confirm the premise. A woman begins to suspect that her husband is having an affair with a famous actress after their young daughter is cast in a movie alongside the actress, and he insists on taking her to and from the set each day.
You were so good.
I know.
I thought it was really great. Both of you, it's really beautiful to watch.
That is, honestly, about as much as you really need to know before you go see it. Take it on faith that there is more here than meets the eye. The trailer pitches it as this fairly straightforward tale of a scorned wife's descent into a jealous rage. But that is not the only thing at play here. The movie's very good at knowing what won't impress you. And I'm not saying you should go in expecting some grand twist necessarily. Like, the fact that the husband is immediately established as a piece of shit made me realize right from the get-go that there was going to be more to this thing than just wondering if the relationship's going to make it, or if her wrath is deserved. It's so much more interesting and richer than that.
I was away, working, research. Anyway, I was gone a couple of months.
8 months. It was 8 months.
I want to tell you everything and nothing about this film.
Good night, my love.
Night, night, Mommy.
So I guess I should probably stop right here.
Want to say goodbye?
Number 2, Oddity.
I saw you come out of the house just now. You went to the car to get something. You left this door open behind you. Somebody went inside.
What?
I saw you go to your car and you left the door open. Somebody slipped inside. They're in there now.
I love bringing obscure films to the masses. I mean, it's not like I distributed it or anything, but I'm thrilled that I get to tell more people about it. That's one of the main reasons I wanted to revive my top 10 list this year, so that I could tell you all about the obscure little gems that I found. So Oddity is a horror film about grief. disguised as a horror film about revenge. It tells the story of a blind, semi-psychic antiquities dealer who travels to the home of her murdered sister to try and figure out who's responsible. The cops have already arrested someone for the crime, but she thinks the real killer might still be at large. Her sister's husband still lives in the very same house that her sister was murdered in. He's even dating someone new already, and while not exactly forbidden from spending time there, she's not exactly a welcome guest either.
And if one were to knock at the door, would you allow them in?
Of course not. Do I look stupid?
I have no idea what you look like. You sound stupid.
Excuse me?
But no matter, she won't need long to get what she came here for, her and this little curio that she brought along. Oddity has one of those premises that's so simple, I'm kinda mad I didn't think of it myself. 90% of the film takes place in one location and plays out over the course of a single day and night. I can't go into much more detail without spoiling anything, but suffice it to say, I love the simplicity of the setup, the surprising places the story goes within that simple setup, and the decisiveness of the script. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, I get the distinct impression that this is the exact kind of film the filmmakers wanted to make. It's not that there isn't any mystery or ambiguity when I say it's decisive, there's actually a lot of mystery and ambiguity. But if something's ambiguous, it's because they wanted it to be ambiguous. That's what I mean by decisive. None of this film is on autopilot. It's so exacting. The plot, the pacing, the lighting, the blocking, everything evokes the exact feeling it's supposed to. Plus, the ending is just... I mean, I would never give away what kind of ending it is, or even which emotions it makes you feel, but you do feel a lot of them. It also ends in exactly the right spot, down to the very frame. There's an old vaudeville saying, when you're done with your act, get off stage. This film is a testament to that. Number 1. Society of the Snow. Society of the Snow tells the real-life story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, which crashed in the Andes Mountains on October 13, 1972, while it was carrying almost the entire Old Christians Club rugby team from Uruguay. The survivors were forced to withstand 72 days on a barren glacier as they awaited rescue and then finally mounted a desperate escape.
Anoche repartimos lo último que nos quedaba. Un paquete de galletitas. Ya no hay más.
Now, we've all seen gritty survival movies before, and this one is particularly gritty. Graphic injuries, heartbreaking triage, downright biblical-level weather events. Not to mention the politics and practicalities of survival cannibalism. And it depicts all of that with the superlative film craft that we've come to expect from a director like J.A. Bayona, who directed The Orphanage, The Impossible, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. But this is more than just an expertly crafted white-knuckle survival film. For one thing, Society of the Snow is fanatically devoted to telling the true story. I've read that it depicts no known inaccuracies. Everything from the fates of the characters, to the exact timeline of events, to the geography of the glacier itself, which was digitally edited in post-production to better reflect reality. All these details were informed and verified by the survivors, with a level of veracity that I think most audiences are simply not used to, since most films like these are more than happy to condense characters, change details, in order to tell what they figure is a more marketable story, which is exactly what they did with the last adaptation, Alive, in 1993. But Society of the Snow proves you don't have to sacrifice a stellar viewing experience for the sake of accuracy, or accuracy for a stellar viewing experience.
¿Conoces la regla de 3? No. 3 minutos sin respirar, 3 días sin consumir agua y 3 semanas sin comer.
3 semanas sin comer. Si yo llevo 3 días sin comer y me estoy muriendo de hambre.
But what's really impressive to me is that the accuracy doesn't just avoid compromising the art, it actually enhances it. There's a lot of examples I could give, but I want to single out one in particular, the perfect marriage of art and accuracy, which serves as both a stunning tribute to the victims of the crash and as an inspired choice of creative filmmaking. And that's the choice of narrator, Numa Turcati.
Me llamo Numa Turcati. Tengo 24 años. Miro a mi alrededor y no conozco a casi nadie. Pero a la vez todo me resulta familiar.
Turcotte was, of course, a real person, but I didn't know anything about him before I saw the film. And as the story unfolded, I figured this guy was going to become notable in some way. Maybe he's going to get them all rescued. Maybe he knows the most about survival. Maybe he, I don't know, demonstrates the most resolve, or the most compassion, or simply leads the proceedings more than anyone else. Well, he's not any of those things. I'm not going to give away what makes his perspective so special, so perfect for a film like this. But I will say that when I finally figured out why they made him the narrator, I think it's more than just a stroke of storytelling genius. It's also a method of honoring the real-life victims in a way that I've never even seen in a film based on true events before. I know I'm not usually this vague. In fact, I realize now that I was being super vague about the last 3 films on this list. That'll be great for rewatchability. But for once, I don't know, I don't want to risk spoiling anything for first-time viewers. This is something that any film based on a real disaster could do, and yet this is the first time I've ever seen it done. And I think more people should see it. Netflix is currently holding this one hostage by not releasing it on Blu-ray. I assume that's why so few people actually saw it, or awarded it much of anything. Lots of foreign press awards and a few Best International Film awards. But I'm telling you, this is the best thing that I saw in 2024. And I'm not just saying that, because this is literally a cold crash picture. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. So, I don't normally do lengthy outros. Like I said in the video, once my act is done, I prefer to get off stage. I'm recording this at the last minute after I put my camera away. I wonder what sort of visual I'm gonna go with. I hope it's not completely random. I've never been very good at asking for help, or recognition, or for you to do anything that you weren't going to do anyway. But lately I've been thinking that's a skill that I'd like to try and develop. Maybe it's because my channel growth has been completely flat for the last 4 years. Maybe it's because I just moved to my second brand new city since the start of COVID, and I'd like to see some progress on the creative front. Maybe it's because I know I'm gonna blink and turn 40 in the next few years. But whatever the reason, I want to take the time to thank you all for watching this video. I know you have a billion demands on your time and attention these days, and the fact that you'd choose to watch anything that I make really kind of blows my mind. Always has. If you've made it this far, you're probably already subscribed. I mean, geez, it's just an outro. It's not like there's gonna be a post-credit scene or anything. But if you haven't already subscribed, I'd really appreciate it if you considered doing so. If only to get notified the next time I upload a video. Then you can see if I'm still worth your time. And if you want to go ahead and share this video, or any video that I've made, I'd really appreciate that. I've never known how to appease the YouTube algorithm. I never know which videos are going to be a flop or a hit, or why my videos usually only get seen by about 20% of my own subscribers. Some people say they don't even get notified when I upload new videos. Does YouTube tell people if they haven't hit that bell yet? I don't know. It's a terrible platform. Anyway, if you've made it this far, you've already done more for me than I could ever hope to repay you for, and I just want to say thanks. And if you want to tell someone about my work, I think that'd be great too. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Whew, that wasn't so hard. Now, do you want to know why Numa Turcotte was such a perfect choice of narrator for Society of the Snow? Here it comes, the spoiler. It's because he was the last fatality. Numa Turcotte was the last person to die up on that glacier. The movie doesn't spell this out for you either. It doesn't tell you that he's going to be the last one to die. First, you simply witness the tragedy of his death, then you spend some time wondering how the film's ever going to proceed without its narrator. And then it finally dawns on you. The story's going to proceed because everyone else is still alive to tell it. That as painful as the story's been up until this point, it's not going to cost anyone else their life. Man, the things I felt when that finally dawned on me, that no one else was gonna die. God, what a film. What a year for film. And frankly, I can hardly believe that we're getting another.